So I did a couple things this weekend. One of those was play Baldurs Gate Dark Alliance 2. The second thing was I watched The Mask with my son. This little trip down memory lane reminded me of a few important things that's been lost to this new hip generation. You know, the good old days, like having villains that wore turtlenecks, men that creepily sniffed women's clothing in public, and that was just okay to do. Also, this reference of adult paraphernalia in this movie that's apparently rated PG. Yeah, I never noticed it as a kid, but yeah, sure noticed it when I rewatched it with my son.
Daddy, what was that?
Well, son, let's just say if your dad used one of those, you wouldn't be here right now. Anyways, the good old days doesn't just pertain to movies and TV, also pertains to video games. Scouring through Reddit after I played Baldurs Gate Dark Alliance 1 a few weekends ago, I didn't realize how many people were complaining about the difficulty of the game and saying it was too hard. Apparently, enemy battles were too tough and they were getting lost in some areas. Welcome to the golden era of video games, kiddos. With Baldurs Gate Dark Alliance 2 releasing on Steam just a couple days ago, I figured now was a perfect time to jump in and see if this game was as difficult as everyone was complaining about. Now, for full disclosure, I did play this game on the original hardware a few days before the Steam port was released, so majority of my clips that I'm using in this video will be from the original hardware. However, I did play the Steam version, and honestly, there weren't really that many changes, just a few texture updates, and it just ran slightly smoother. So other than that, the games were pretty identical. So this game picks up right where the other one left off, which I thought was pretty cool. And right off the bat, you get a selection of 5 characters this time, instead of just the 3. To my dismay, there was no sorceress, but there was a shirtless necromancer, so close enough. There's also a human cleric, a dwarf ranger, a dark elf monk, human barbarian, and the discount Sephiroth. Some of the key changes and improvements were noticeable straight from the beginning of the game. Looking at the character select screen, we can see that there's far more abilities to choose from. There's also a quick spell menu here where you can put up to 4 spells or 4 abilities to be used, which is a huge improvement from the original game. You'll also notice too that the map is far less linear. It leads to a lot more exploration, and even some areas have multiple different exits, so that's really fun to explore. Now, a huge gripe I do have with this game from the very beginning is whenever we do our classic unequipping of the armor, for some reason the necromancer still insists on wearing his jorts. Yeah, immersion totally broken. Strike one. One thing you will also find frequently in this game is that there's tons of optional side quests that you can do. By completing them, you can either get additional experience or additional items just by doing them, or you can just ignore them altogether. One of them, for example, wants you to escape this burning house later on in the game, so you can either choose self-preservation and just get the out of there, or you can choose to search through chests and the rest of the house to find keys to unlock the doors to let out the trapped servants. This is basically the Dark Alliance version of Save the Animals from Super Metroid.
Wada, I think you should save the servants and then gain that precious experience. It's a win-win.
Speedrun that bitch.
Included in these side quests are the character-specific class quests. They allow you to unlock even more skills for your character that are pretty powerful. For instance, the Necromancer can summon a skeleton. It's only really useful to distract a few enemies while you cast your spells at a distance. But quickly becomes underpowered the more you progress. However, upon completing the character class quest, it does get upgraded to a shadow pet, which is far tankier and does far more damage than the skeleton did. This is just one of the upgraded spells that you unlock, but basically each class has their own quest that they can do to make their character far stronger. One thing that does make a comeback in a big way in this game is our fan favorite loading screen fire. This time with added game tips. Come on, right? So this game, compared to the original, had a much darker aesthetic. Wait, Dark Alliance. Maybe that's why it's called that. But there's 2 of them, and this is the second. Twice the darkness. I know that's most likely the vibe they were going for with these two games. However, I do think there's something charming about bright, colorful environments as well. The whole first act of this game, you're pretty much in a haunted house, and then from there you move on into this dark laboratory that's just bloody, like blood everywhere. Mate, I chose a necromancer. Think a little blood is gonna bother me? Yep. That's
That's a lot of blood.
okay, maybe I'm overreacting, but just personally, I do like more brighter and more varied environments in my video games. Now, there are some levels in the last act of this game that have far brighter colors. However, it feels like the developers kind of ran out of time and just had to throw something together, because you can get through these areas in like 5 minutes or less. So it feels a bit uninspired, but like I said, it's just my personal take. Another really cool addition to this game is the crafting and the enchantment system. It's not really necessary to use in your first playthrough, however, but it can greatly increase your stats when you play on tougher difficulties. It's not too in-depth, but it is a huge step in the right direction that adds a ton of customization to your character and to your armor. Okay, so the characters, the story, and the music. If you were hoping for an improvement here, then you're playing the wrong RPG. As explained in my first video, these types of games aren't really designed around storytelling or character development, but somehow I think it adds to the charm of the game. Overly corny villains, cliche characters, and just average music that happens to match the area that you're in, it doesn't really get in the way of the gameplay loop, which I feel is the whole reason we play these games anyways. There's the classic bad guy that we thought died in the previous game, but somehow comes back, makes an appearance in this game for no reason whatsoever, still a bad guy. There's your classic good character at the beginning of the game that kind of helps us and pushes us all the way through to the end where they turn out to be a bad guy. So then we fight them and then they turn back into a good guy again. Then that first character we mentioned comes back in this game and flip-flops and now becomes a good guy and sacrifices himself for us at the end of the game. It's just peak storytelling, really. It's just writing at its finest. Either way, the trudge through the 5 acts of this game, it was an enjoyable one, and much like the first game, it does lend itself to multiple playthroughs. This time there are 2 hidden characters that you can unlock. Dritz from beating the game on any difficulty, then you get Artemis from beating the game on extreme mode. I remember as a kid being really excited to unlock these characters because they look so cool, but after a while I always enjoyed playing the other characters more just because there was a bit more customization. The hidden characters you get, they kind of have like their preferred weapons and a preferred play style as well, so it just feels a bit less dynamic in the playthrough, but it's still really cool inclusions in a game like this. So to touch on the difficulty of this game, which I mentioned in the intro, after playing this game and trying to focus on the difficulty, I can say that it pretty much is right on par with other games that were released around this time period. It's not mind-bending in any way, but the difficulty can come from basically your character build, choosing bad abilities, not upgrading your equipment properly, and just running into rooms like full of mobs without a plan. For the most part, I pretty much had an ability that would carry me through pretty much an entire act of the game while I built up enough skill points to purchase another ability to carry me through the next couple acts. However, there were a few times in the game where you really have to grind out a couple levels. Basically, you got to take down enemies one by one until you get the abilities that's going to carry you through the next part. Overall, this game delivers on what the original did, but expands on everything slightly, making it pretty much what you want in a sequel. More abilities, more exploring, more optional side quests, more characters, and more fire. I do highly recommend you get this game on Steam if you don't have a way to play the original. However, I would possibly wait for a sale because the price is extremely steep for it's basically a port of the original game. However, if you are a huge fan of action RPGs and you have the money to spend, get the game, you will not be disappointed. Now, just secretly, if you have a PS2 emulator, maybe give that a try just to see if you would like the game. But you didn't hear that from me. Anyways, this game gets 7 watermelons out of 10. If you like this game, then you'll definitely want to watch our previous video where we talked about Baldurs Gate Dark Alliance 1. Other than that, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.